Hi, everybody. This is Gino Vanelli. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the persons appearing on the program.
He is a two-time Canadian national champion, a three-time Four Continents medalist. He's also the 2021 World Bronze medalist. Plus, he's a three-time Olympian. Today on Rainbow Country, Canadian ice dancer Paul Poirier is my guest. We'll find out about his 2022 Beijing Winter Olympic experience, his coming out story, and so much more. All that and even more on episode 295, so stay tuned for Gay Talk Radio right here on Rainbow Country.
Hi, this is Emily Saliers from Indigo Girls.
Hey everyone, this is Chris Harder, porn star, burlesque performer, and the creator of Porn to Be a Star. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Well, hello and welcome to a brand new journey through Rainbow Country. As I like to call it, a little gay radio show working to give voice to the LGBT community and beyond. And as always, I am your tour guide through Rainbow Country. I'm producer and host, Mark Tara. By the way, Rainbow Country originates from CIUT-FM in Toronto, and now proudly in syndication on 12 outlets across Canada. So, from coast to coast to coast. The Yukon, British Columbia, the prairies in Saskatchewan and Manitoba, the east coast of Canada in Newfoundland, Ontario, even down to Buffalo, New York, and online. Well, thanks to you tuning in, streaming, downloading, but ultimately listening. Together, we continue to build Rainbow Country into a nationally syndicated gay radio show, a #1 LGBT podcast on Podomatic.com's Gay and Lesbian chart, as well as being recognized as Canada's #2 LGBT podcast on Feedspot.com. So, today, Canadian ice dancer Paul Poirier is my guest. We'll find out about what got him into skating in the first place, his 2022 Beijing Winter Olympic experience, and so much more. Plus, in Hour 2, music from LGBT artists, independent artists, voices that we've come to know and love in classic disco, classic 80s, classic house, and on this episode I'm featuring some classic disco, a queer DJ set, and so much more. But at first, my Big Brother Canada Season 10 coverage continues with the most recent Evicted House Guest.
I have the results of tonight's second eviction vote. By a vote of 7-2. Jess, you have been evicted. Please say your goodbyes.
Hi, Jess. How are you?
Hi, Mark. I am okay.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I was on Big Brother Canada 10. That's awesome. But I'm not there anymore. So that's not as awesome. But, you know, give and take.
I have to say, first and foremost, I have to say congrats on making it on to Big Brother Canada Season 10. When it comes to Canadian reality TV, it's a landmark. First of all, congrats on that. How are you doing?
Thank you so much.
How are you doing now that your butt is out of that house?
I'm fine. I'm really proud of the game I played, especially considering the cards I was dealt week 2 being nominated. So I feel like I pushed way further than anyone maybe expected me to. And yeah, I never have any regrets. No regrets.
Let's start here with yourself. How would you categorize yourself? Would you say that you are a casual fan of Big Brother? You are a fan of the show, of the game, or you are a super fan?
I am a super fan. I'm not sure I performed as well as I should have with all my knowledge and love of the game, but I definitely am in the super fan category. I absolutely adore this program. I think it's one of the best TV shows on the planet.
Did you have a strategy going into this game?
Yeah, I really just wanted to be fluid and flexible. I think you can't really strategize too much without knowing what's in store. There's always twists and turns. You never know what people you're going to be around. So I just really wanted to be fluid and flexible. Unfortunately, my strategy changed day 2 when I was nominated and had to save myself. So my strategy kind of shifted to pure resilience and self-preservation.
Mm. You were just HOH. You were just head of household, yet here we are, here we are today. Why do you think you got evicted right after your HOH?
I definitely didn't take the easy route, but I also could see that there was a large group of people working together, and I was always a contingency plan. Even with the siblings, I knew I was just an extra. So I had to make the hard decision of doing something easy and losing another person that maybe would have worked with me, or taking a big shot and getting out a power player that was part of that larger group that I was maybe strung along with, but never truly part of.
Mm. During your HOH, you had to make a replacement nominee.
Yeah.
You put up Tanisha. Why did you pick Tanisha for the replacement?
I chose Tanisha because throughout the week, it became very clear that the siblings was fairly secondary. We never talked about how what decision would be best for the group. I also saw her undevoted love to both Moose and Herman, and I feel like I could put up almost half the house and that person still would have gone home. So I had to make the decision difficult for her and for those who were working with her to choose between her or Moose. And there was quite a few numbers that didn't want to see Tanisha carrying on playing because she was very, very powerful.
So looking back now, do you think Tanisha was the best replacement option?
I do. I think if I hadn't, it would have bought me a few more weeks in the house, but I was on the outs. I was on the outs since week 1. So I definitely wanted to make sure that someone who wasn't ever going to prioritize me went home. Mm-hmm. I'm sure some people think that I should have hedged my bets with those 3 beautiful women, but I really couldn't trust them. I saw that they had much more love for everyone else. And as someone who has been basically on an island this entire time, I decided to, pull the captain off the big ship that I was, being dragged along with a rope, but could have been cut at any moment. So I will use that analogy for you.
You were eliminated during a double eviction, the chain of safety double eviction. You were on the block with Gino.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, was there anything you could have done to save yourself? Throw Gino onto that double-decker bus, maybe? I don't know. Was there anything you think you could have done?
I think Gino said it very well in his speech that he kind of felt the house owed him after he got rid of Kyle. I do feel like it was possibly the best strategy for him to try to do a reset, but he also had expressed to me in private that he felt like he made a mistake the week previous and that he would have put up the similar people that I was putting up. I don't think that was BS. I think he was genuinely honest about that. He could see that there was a large group that he wasn't part of as well, but that was a great case for him. And also people were very upset with me. The blowback of Tanisha leaving was something I could not avoid in that situation. And if I had been given a regular amount of time, I might have been able to talk my way out of it like I have in a few other instances throughout the game. But there was no way to avoid how upset everyone was with me for making the decision I did.
So Jess, you are the second non-binary contestant on Big Brother Canada. The first was in season 7, Kira.
Yeah.
On this platform, was there a bigger purpose for you being on Big Brother Canada? And was there a bigger message for you? And if so, what was that message?
Sure. Well, number one, I do want to give a shout out to the third, which is Jay as well. So they deserve some kudos too. It was wild to walk into the house and have a fellow non-binary person, someone who identifies as non-binary trans, being there with me. So just a little side note on that. But for me, it was important to have people learn about the difference between gender expression and gender identity. A lot of times people think that if you're non-binary, that you have to present sort of in the middle of male and female. So letting people know about gender queerness and the many facets of non-binariness was important. I think it helps people eliminate assumptions about people. We don't know who anyone is until they express who they are. We don't know pronouns until they're given. And so I think that was really important for me to express. Also, just being able to be representation for all the people who are younger. When I was younger, I felt like I had to be female, present as female, do all the things that females do. And it never really sat well with me. Even when I was as young as 3, I was like, why do I have to wear that? Why do I have to do this based on my assigned gender? So I hope that, I'm very grateful for Big Brother Canada to have given more representation, show the many facets of the beautiful spectrum that is non-binariness. And that was something that I am very proud of and hopefully represented well. And
you're absolutely right. The third, Jay, yes. Two in one season.
Yeah, so look at us. We got 3 check marks in there for the non-binary kids. We're doing good.
Was playing this game, this experiment, this experience, Big Brother Canada, was this harder than you thought it would be?
It was very hard considering that I was nominated week 2. I know the game well enough to know that when people are on the block, everyone else avoids them. It is a game of self-preservation, and you're also trying to make connections. So in the early weeks, you don't want to be connected to someone who is, the overt target. Herman was very direct with his words when he put me up, said that I was a threat to his game and I was a powerful player. I proved that when I won the veto. And I think that just stopped me from being able to integrate socially. But I don't blame anyone for doing that. I think if I was in their shoes, I would have avoided the 2 people or 3 people that were on the block just as much.
Who would you like to see win this season?
There's 2 people I'd like to see win. I'd like to see Kevin win. I think he's sort of the quirky weirdo in there too. And he's very intelligent. I think people are starting to catch on to that, but hopefully he can navigate accordingly. I also would love for Josh to win, another fellow queer in the house and someone who has a lot of love in a lot of places, and he has a bunch of paths he could take. So either of those 2 would make me quite happy.
Mm-hmm. And my last question for you, best part about being part of Big Brother Canada Season 10?
Just feeling like Big Brother thinks I'm cool enough and special enough to be in there. I think a lot of the time people underestimate themselves and don't give themselves the credit they deserve. And I often love to watch others shine. So it was nice to be a star and shine a little bit. I know I was maybe a little more of a gloomy rain cloud than I'd like to be. I usually have a little bit more sunshine in my step, but given the circumstances and some of the isolation I felt socially, like that would be, my little backup on that issue. But otherwise, it's such a great honor. I feel so special to be part of that incredible cast. And just to be in that house, actually looking at it, it took me several weeks to stop pinching myself, being like, is this even real?
Jess, well said, well done, well played. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mark. You take care of yourself. I appreciate you.
By the way, Big Brother Canada airs Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays on Global TV. Check your local listings for airtime.
Hi, I'm Eric Radford, Olympic and world champion figure skater, pianist, and composer, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Terra.
Up next, ice dancer Paul Poirier. Paul Poirier, hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am good. I'm better now that I'm speaking to you, to have your voice, your story be heard by the LGBT community and beyond. Paul Poirier, especially to talk about a little thing called maybe the Olympics.
Just a very small thing.
That's where I want to start with yourself. 2022, the Beijing Winter Olympics. I believe this was your second Olympic Games?
My third Olympic Games, 2 with the same partner and 1 previously with another partner. So it's been a long time of doing this.
So did you do Vancouver 2010?
I did do Vancouver 2010, which was, in a way, I was very spoiled to do my first Olympic Games at home in Canada.
Wow.
And to have that experience of doing a home games, which is so rare even for an athlete that makes the Olympics. I don't want to say it ruined the other ones for me. I feel like every Olympics has its own feeling and is special in its own way. But of course, Vancouver was particularly special, just being able to do that at home.
I would think so. So 2022, the Beijing Winter Olympics, generally speaking, how was that Olympic Games for you?
It was, I feel like these games really embodied the entirety of my career in a lot of ways. We had some really great performances that I'm really proud of. We had one performance that did not go as planned and did not go well. And ultimately, we didn't get the result that we were hoping for heading into the games. And that was disappointing in a lot of ways. But I feel like we came out of that performance and the whole experience of the games also very proud of what we were able to accomplish, of what we've done, and also just the very difficult trajectory that brought us to that moment. And we were able to celebrate that in a lot of ways. I think I always say the Olympic Games, more than anything, is really just one of the most incredible vehicles for storytelling. That's something we like to do as performers. And if I think of it in the context of that, if I think in the context of my story, of our story with my partner Piper, there's just so much richness there. There's so much grit there. There are so many beautiful things there to celebrate. So I leave, with bittersweet feelings, but I think ultimately being really proud of everything.
So in regards to the 2022 Winter Olympic Games, this was your third Olympic Games. This was also an Olympic Games during a global pandemic. How did that aspect affect you at all, if it did? Like, were there a lot of restrictions? What was the atmosphere like during these games, during a global pandemic?
I think there were definitely some differences. In general, I always say the Olympics is very different from anything as an athlete you would ever do, except for the part where you're doing your sport, which is just like any other competition. So I would say the skating part, which is, the reason we're there, was really unaffected by the pandemic for the most part, other than, needing to wear a mask and being conscious of distance between people. What made these games different, I think, first and foremost, was the fact that we were in a closed bubble. So there's an Olympic Village where all the athletes reside. And so there's apartment buildings, and you live in a little apartment for the month that you're there, and there's a cafeteria and you eat there. And we could not leave that bubble. So there was no going out and seeing the city of Beijing. There were no... Usually at the Olympic Games, there are lots of sort of other events that are happening outside of the immediate Olympic area. So, sponsors are running events, and usually every country has like a little cultural center. They're called houses, usually, where you can kind of go around and...
Was there a Canada House?
There wasn't. So not that I'm aware of in any case, because there were no Canadians to go there, and we couldn't leave the village. So all of that experience that you would usually get And usually you get to really enjoy these things once you finish competing. We couldn't do any of those things. And they also had a policy that most people had to leave within 48 hours of being done competing. So usually as the games progress, there are more and more people that are done competing and that are just there really enjoying the Olympic experience, going to watch other sports. And as I said before, going to events, going to houses, and just really taking in the fullness of the games. And there wasn't necessarily that. But I think we did still have a lot of amazing opportunities for camaraderie with other Canadian athletes and with athletes from other countries. And it was, as I said, it was still very special in a lot of ways. I was fearful going in that I would feel really isolated and alone, and that wasn't the case. I actually think the hardest part of the games was not actually the games themselves, but the lead up to the games before we left. And the amount of fear we had that we would catch COVID before leaving and not be able to go.
Right.
And I feel a lot of my time leading up to the games, especially the month before we left after the holidays, just kind of being this period of intense paranoia in a lot of ways. And I was, we were seeing some of our training mates day to day at the skating rink, and I was hunkered down with my partner. And that was really it. That was kind of my little bit of community that I had leading up to the games. And we were just so fearful of just having a chance encounter with with COVID. I know. I don't even want to say it. I don't want to speak of it. So, I feel like that month leading up to the games was much more stressful than usual just because of that. And just all of the hoops we had to jump through to get special permission to enter China because their borders are quite closed with the pandemic. So it was actually such a relief to arrive there and then to just do the thing that we know how to do, which is to skate. So I found once I got there, I felt great. And it was really that lead up that was the most difficult part, I think.
This being your third Olympic Games, did you have expectations going into it?
In terms of results or in terms of, Yeah, definitely. So Piper and I, we were bronze medalists at the World Championships last year. So we knew we had a viable shot of being on the podium at these Olympic Games entering this season. And that was a difference in pressure that we didn't have at the last Olympics in Pyeongchang and that I didn't have in Vancouver. I don't think it changed much of my experience having those higher expectations for ourselves. I think every athlete goes into the Olympic Games wanting to perform at their best and to perform at their peak. And you prepare yourself to do that no matter what. So I don't know if it made a big difference, but we were definitely aiming high for these games because we knew it was something that we could possibly achieve. And as I said before, we didn't achieve it. And in some ways that was a little bit disappointing. But so much of the life of an athlete is failure and figuring out what you need to do next, so that you don't fail again. And so this is just part of that process in the same way.
Okay, so there was some controversy in regards to the Beijing Olympics, particularly when it comes to figure skating, female figure skating. I'm talking about Kamila Valieva, I believe is how you say her name. Mm-hmm. She tested positive for a banned heart medication. And ultimately, in figure skating, in the team category, Russia took gold, and Canada was finished fourth overall. And it was going back and forth whether or not this figure skater would be disqualified and then they would lose their gold in the team category. Then Canada would move up to bronze, potentially. When this was all going on, how were you guys doing? How were you guys dealing with all of this? Was it affecting you at all? Did you disregard it?
Yeah, I mean, I think fortunately for us, in a lot of ways, when we finished the team event, all of that news started to break out the day after the team event, and
because they did not do the award ceremony.
Exactly. And so, and definitely for the first while, we on the ground really didn't have any information about the situation besides the fact that the award ceremony had been postponed or canceled. And that's really all we knew. I think, fortunately for us, 4 days after the team event, were beginning our individual event because we were participating in both of those events. And it was because we had that clear objective in the very near future that we had to focus on. It was really easy to block out all of the noise that was happening around the team event. I also think for us, we're familiar with the world of sport and we're familiar with the world of anti-doping and how these processes work. And right from the get-go, the moment that there's any doping violation, the process of testing a secondary sample and then going through the court for arbitration of sport, that process is something that takes months and months. And so we knew that this was not going to be something that would be resolved during our stay at the games. And it wasn't something that we had any control over. And I think for a lot of those reasons, it was really something that we were able to just put behind us and not think about. I think a lot of the challenge as an athlete always is to be able to block out the things that you cannot control, because if you try to control everything in your environment, it's an impossible task and you just kind of work yourself up. And so we really placed that in the bin of something we have no control over. And we really wanted to focus on our individual skates, which were coming up in a few days. I think definitely the whole situation cast a little bit of a shadow over the figure skating community during the games. And that was definitely felt even as a spectator during the women's event. But, and in the end, more than anything, I think we as a figure skating community want to celebrate all that is beautiful in our sport. And, I'm hoping no matter which way this situation goes, that ultimately the beauty of figure skating will shine through.
Well said. Well said. You are a 3-time Olympian. Crazy.
Yes. It is crazy when you think about it, though.
It is. But do you have your eyes set on 2026?
I'm not sure yet. Piper and I, we really entered this quadrennial, so these 4 years leading up to Beijing, not really knowing what was going to be the next thing for us. And I think, we're at a point where we're figure skating old, which is funny to say, but it's the truth. And I think a lot of what we do moving forwards will really depend on what inspires us and what keeps us moving forward. As you get older, it's harder and harder to take care of your body and make sure you're in the right shape you need to be in to compete. And it's also it's sometimes hard to just continue to have creative ideas. And so I think we want to make sure that whatever we decide to do, whether it's to compete at another Olympic Games or to maybe just compete for 1 or 2 more seasons, we want to make sure that we're doing that from a place of pure heart, that we really are giving it our all, and we feel like we are bringing our whole selves to the process of what we're doing. I think right now we're in a space where the entirety of our lives for the last few years have been built around this Olympic moment. And when that moment is behind you and you lose that anchoring point, it's very easy to
feel adrift.
Yeah, feel adrift, and I think feel a little bit unmotivated. And this is something that athletes speak about all the time. Even athletes who are successful and win medals speak of having these dark moments after the games where they have to reorient themselves. And I feel like the next few months will really be that process for us, where we really rally together and think about what is it that we want to keep giving to the world. And that's the beautiful thing about our sport. is that we are athletes, but we have the opportunity to create moments and tell stories and reach people on an emotional and personal level. And that's something that we really enjoy to do. And, I think a lot of the time that's the main reason that we skate. And so I think, I'm excited to get back in touch with that, because it's very easy in the process of preparing for the games to lose sight of that a little bit and to be focused on the results that you want to achieve.
And on that note, we will return after this Rainbow Country update.
Hi everyone, this is Mark Tewksbury, Olympic champion, leader, humanitarian. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Canada's LGBTQ2+ archives just released Out North, an archive of queer activism and kinship in Canada. Order a copy from your local bookstore to dive into hundreds of loud and proud stories and photos of historical queer life in Canada from pre-1939 to today. Get your copy from your local bookstore. Out North, an archive of queer activism and kinship in Canada.
Hi, I'm Keegan Hurst, former professional rugby player, coach, raving homosexual, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
You started skating at the age of 5?
That's correct. It's very long.
How did you get started at the age of 5? Because surely you didn't have your own little skates that you laced up and you went, I'm out of here.
I think
I'll see you later, Mom. I'm going skating.
I think ultimately that's what happened a little bit. I don't think it was anyone's intention, let alone mine, for it to kind of consume my life like this. But I was put in, like, I think a lot of kids that have the opportunity to. So I was put into team sports as a kid, and I played hockey and I played soccer, and I really didn't like them, was really what it came down to. I didn't get the point. I didn't see why I had to go chase the ball or the puck when I knew I had 4 teammates that were going to do it for me. And I think my parents took note of that very quickly. And so ultimately I was put into skating lessons, which are usually operated by figure skating clubs here in Canada. And I was put into skating lessons to learn how to skate and just to see if that was something I would take to. And for me, the initial motivator was that my parents told me if I stuck with it for a year, I'd be allowed to skate without a helmet. And I thought that was so cool to be able to skate without a helmet. And so that was why I skated. But I think I took to the sport very quickly. I was good at it, which always helps. It's always motivating when you're good at something and when people give you challenges and you're able to meet them. And I liked having control over what I was doing. And so the tasks that were given to me as a figure skater were individualized to where I was at and what I wanted to do. And I think as I got a little bit older and you start competing and you get your first little program to music and you get to perform and you get to move your body in the way that the music is telling you, those are the aspects of skating that really sucked me in. And I think it's at that point where I started taking it a little bit more seriously. I started dropping my other activities and really just focusing on doing that. And slowly it just ate at my life. I don't feel like I had an epiphany. I know some people do, but I never had this epiphany where one day I woke up and I said, like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, or whatever it is. I just kept skating because I enjoyed it. And as I kept working and improving, more doors opened for me. And then I've gotten here somehow by miracle. It feels a lot of the time, and I'm still enjoying what I'm doing. And that also just feels like the greatest miracle as well.
You're doing both men's skating and pair skating, ice dancing at the same time?
Yes. So, every figure skater starts in individual skating.
Right. And how did you get from there into ice dance then?
Yeah. So we have a program in Canada, and a lot of countries do this as well, where you might not be an ice dancer and you don't want to do competitions, but there's something just called a test series where there are these set ice dances that you can learn, and then you kind of like hire a partner and you perform the dances, and then there's a judge that evaluates you and says whether you kind of did them up to snuff. And I think it gives a lot of skaters just a variety of things to do, just something different from the kind of usual jump, fall, jump, fall, jump, fall. It teaches you some good basic skating skills. And, sometimes it's just a nice change of pace. So a lot of skaters, even if they are single skaters, will do this at some point, especially early in their career.
Okay.
And so I had a coach who was taking me through those tests. And at one point, she approached me and said that there was a girl at the skating club who wanted to try ice dance, but needed a partner, and whether I would be interested. I liked skating enough at the time, and I was like, yeah, sure. Why not? It's more skating. I like doing that. So that's okay. So again, it wasn't a purposeful decision where, I thought, oh, this is the thing I'm going to do. It was really something I enjoyed doing. And so for a good long time, for about 9 years, I was competing in both those events, which does happen in figure skating, but is not that common, for sure. But I really enjoyed competing in both disciplines, and I really feel that each one supported the other in a lot of ways. And so I kept that up as long as I could. At a certain point, if you want to be competitive, there just isn't enough time or energy in a day to practice sufficiently. And so at a certain point, I had to make a choice with what I want, where I really thought I had a future. And for me, I felt that was ice dance, and that's why I'm still doing it.
So can we talk about costumes?
Always. Always.
So your I guess it's your short program for 2022. You guys had this bright orange outfit.
Yeah.
It seemed very. First of all, they were beautiful. They reminded me of maybe like Brazil and Carnival, that sort of thing, or maybe like flamingos. Talk to me about these costumes that you guys had. Your bright orange, beautifully done costumes, and what's the story behind that? Because I'm sure there is one.
Yeah, I think more than anything. So for the rhythm dance this season, we were skating to the music of Elton John, and I think more than anything, we wanted to create a program that embodied Elton's showmanship and his commitment to creating a spectacle. And that's really what we wanted to do. Of course, a lot of, and so while the costumes were inspired by some of Elton's looks, it's very hard to do a lot of the structured things. If you look at Elton's old costumes, especially from the 70s and 80s, a lot of those things just really aren't possible on the ice, and to, all the acrobatic things that we need to do. And so it had to be pared down in some way in order to make it work. But really the goal was to capture that essence, that energy. The hardest part, I think, for us was to choose a base color for the costumes. We knew we wanted the decor to to be multicolored, and we couldn't really decide what the best base color would be. And we thought white might be nice for a while because it would really let all the other colors shine in the decor. But then we thought that might look a little too Elvis Presley or something like that. And so then we kind of revised, and we kept coming back to orange for some reason, but we didn't know what kind of orange. And so one day, Piper, my partner, was out on Queen Street doing some fabric shopping, and she just found the orange spandex. And we knew right away that it was something we wanted to try. And we also knew it was a gamble, and then it might turn out so incredibly tacky and just kind of too bright. But it was a gamble we wanted to take, and we really feel like the costumes came together in the way that we wanted. And I have to say, we really do have to credit Bobby and Sally Akbarelli, who did all of the decor and all of the stone design for those costumes, because they really found the perfect colors to complement that orange hue and to also create a design of stones that was flattering on the body, and that kind of allowed these very plain looking jumpsuits, because when you just kind of all in spandex, it's a lot. And they turn those plain looking jumpsuits into something that I think is really striking. They really did such a beautiful job with it. And, as I said, I really can't thank them enough for their skill and their ability to turn kind of a wild idea into something real. I think it's so special in general, as we as figure skaters get to collaborate with so many artists, musical artists and design artists, and just so many people who are creating beautiful things and pulling them out of the void. And we get to do that process all together to ultimately create what is that final product.
Mm. So you and your ice dance partner, Piper Gillis, the two of you are the reigning Canadian ice dance champions. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
How do you feel about that?
It's always exciting. It's always special. Last year, we were not able to have our Canadian championships due to the pandemic. But we were also national champions the year before in 2020. And I wasn't sure if after having done it before, it would make the next one less special or seem like less of a big deal. But I really still feel like it's an honor. And if I think of all of the great Canadian ice dancers who have been in that same place, who have won national titles, it really does feel remarkable to be part of that small family of people who have reached the pinnacle of our sport here in this country and have brought their skating and their art to the world. I feel so blessed so many days that we've had those opportunity, that we've had the support and the means to pursue that and to reach those goals. It really is always a special thing to be able to do that, to have that title, and to know that you've made a mark on your community, on your sport. I think there's a lot to celebrate there.
You are the reigning Canadian champions when it comes to ice dance. Yeah. Going into the Beijing Winter Olympics, did you feel any pressure to live up to a certain standard, to maybe achieve a certain goal?
I think always. I think, this was our first time going into the Olympic Games as Canadian champions, as Canada's top couple. Mm-hmm. But as I said, I think in the end, as an athlete, whether you're, the top in Canada or whether you're a third in Canada, or whether you have a good chance at being on the podium or whether you don't, as an athlete, there's always the pressure to perform at your best and to get the best result possible. And I don't know if that pressure changes so much from one spot to the other. I think there is a lot of honor in representing our country. And, it's not something that we take lightly, but I think it's always important remember first and foremost that we skate for ourselves. And I think so long as you can keep that part in perspective, there isn't undue pressure. There's the pressure that comes from yourself because you want to do your best, and you want to skate as well as you can. But again, really, ultimately, the skate is the only thing you have control over. And I think if you can keep sight of that, the rest falls into place.
You recently came out. Why did you choose to do that now? I believe like it was in 2021.
Yeah. And, in some ways it's funny. In some ways it didn't feel so much like a coming out because I've lived fairly out in my life for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But it is different to have a public conversation about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first time doing so. And
did you see it as a coming out?
Half and half. It's funny. I especially looking back now, in some ways it did, because there was that same stepping out of my comfort zone that, I did feel like when I was younger and I was coming out to the people that were important in my life. But in other ways, it really just felt like, this has been my reality for a long time. I just want to have a more public conversation about it. And I think for me, that was really important. I had a lot of time to reflect over the course of the pandemic, and especially during the first lockdown, we weren't able to skate at all. We weren't even able to train. So I had a lot of time with my thoughts, and I think a lot of people had this experience. I had a lot of time to reflect on skating, to reflect on what it meant to me, and also to reflect on what impact I wanted to have both on the skating world and on the wider world. And I think for me, I ultimately felt this responsibility. Every 4 years we go to the Olympic Games, and suddenly our sport and ourselves as people are just so much more visible to the wider world. And I grew up in a time where there were no out athletes to watch and to look up to. And in the last 10 years, there's been such a big change in the sporting world, and especially in the figure skating world, around that. And it's been so good to see. And so I have so many great people ahead of me who are trailblazers in this respect. And ultimately I wanted to be able to be that role model for some kid who might be watching me, and to be able to see me and think I can belong there as well.
Do you find people are treating you differently now that you've come out publicly as gay?
Not so much. I've had a lot more, specific opportunities that have come around because of that, and just working with some publication that deal with LGBTQ people in sport, and things like that. And that's been really special to be part of that family of athletes in a lot of ways. But in terms of the day-to-day and in terms of the skating, not really. And in a lot of ways, that's really refreshing, because that's ultimately the experience that we want to have. We want to belong and feel like we have equal opportunity in this world, whether it's in sport, whether it's in figure skating, or whatever it is that we're doing. I think the thing that was the most special to me, especially coming out of that first article that came out in June, I had, more than anything, I had so many parents reach out to me with queer children and thanking me, and sometimes asking how they could better support their children. And honestly, that just warmed my heart so much. And it made me feel just like, so special in a lot of ways to see kids having those nurturing environments. I just thought it was really beautiful.
So, English, French, Japanese, Spanish, these are all languages that you speak. You have a Bachelor of Arts in Linguistics. What is it about languages that intrigues you so?
I should preface by saying, I can do small things in Japanese, but I couldn't carry like a full-blown conversation for a long period of time. I did go to U of T and I did 2 degrees there in linguistics, and I enjoyed them so much. I think I was very lucky to have grown up in a multilingual home. My father's French Canadian. My mom grew up in South America and speaks Spanish and Portuguese. And so growing up, I was surrounded by a variety of languages, and I was surrounded by people who were multilingual and who celebrated that. And so for me, it was always something that was extremely important. I think skating gave me the opportunity from a very young age to travel and see the world and to meet so many people and
to be able to converse with them.
It was nice when I could converse with them, but I felt especially frustrated when I couldn't. I feel languages are such important gateways into cultures, into communities, and into relationships with people. And I think that's, for me, is really the thing that interests me the most about them. And so while I don't necessarily have the complete knack of being a polyglot, I think it's always been something that I've wanted to understand more and to learn about and to celebrate. And, I think my studies in that regard have been so wonderful, and I think even opened my eyes up to the variety of languages that exist in the world, and also the ways that a lot of them are in danger, and the importance of linguistic variety, the same way that we celebrate just the sheer variety of unique people that exist in this world. In the same way, there are just so many beautiful, unique languages that are contain so much uniqueness and wisdom and beauty. And I'm in my little corner of the universe trying to understand as much as I can, which in the end ultimately is still not very much. But it's just something I enjoy so much.
Do you have a favorite language?
Oh, that's difficult. Don't do that to me. I have a lot of languages that I like, for...
Okay. What do you think is a sexy language?
Sexy language. Oh. Okay, this is a little bit controversial, but I really like German.
Okay.
I know some people say it's harsh sounding, but I really don't agree with that.
Ich kann ein bisschen Deutsch sprechen.
That was good. I'm impressed.
That's all I know.
Better than me. Better than me.
Okay, so 3-time 4 continents medalist, world's bronze medalist, 2-time Canadian national champion, plus a 3-time Olympian. Paul Poirier, what is next for you, do you think?
It's funny when you list them all like that, it feels like so much. And as I said, if I look back on our body of work, there is so much that I've enjoyed and so much that I'm proud of. We're in a place where I don't actually know what's next. And that's a little bit frightening for me, because I think for a long time in my career, the next thing has been obvious. I think what's next is moving to a place where we really are performing and skating for ourselves and creating the work that we want to create. And I think that's a place that's really exciting, where we're really doing the work that interests us, that we feel compelled to do. And I'm so looking forward to that more than anything. I think there's so much freedom to experience in dance and in performing and in creating. And I think in so many ways we've reached a point where we as a couple are able to bring our whole selves to that process. And so, for me, coming out was part of, or, sharing my story more widely was part of that as well, where I feel like I can bring my whole self to skating. And that's the thing that I want to keep doing.
Do you feel freer as a skater doing something like Stars on Ice compared to a judged event like competing at the Olympics?
Yes, in a lot of ways. I think sometimes shows like Stars on Ice present their own challenges. Of course, our primary focus is competing, and we spend most of our time preparing for those things. And so a lot of times when we get to the end of the competitive season around now, and we only have a very short period of time to prepare for the tour, it can feel really stressful just trying to kind of put everything together really quickly. But there is something so freeing in skating without worrying about being better than other people, and skating while worrying about winning. And there's something about that I really enjoy as well. So we will be doing the Stars on Ice tour this year in Canada. We weren't able to do it last year again because of the pandemic. And so, I'm so excited to change gears a little bit and going to a place where we're just performing to entertain.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I really enjoy doing, that Piper really enjoys doing. And I think it'll be after the intensity of this season and everything that we've tried to do, I think it will feel really enjoyable and liberating.
Well said. Well said. Paul Poirier, thank you for your time. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Mark. Really appreciate it.
Paul Poirier and his ice dancing partner, Piper Gillis, are part of the Stars on Ice tour that's happening right now. For more information, just head over to starsonice.ca.
Bill 7, to ban discrimination in employment, government services, and housing, based on a person's sexual orientation, was up for a vote at Queen's Park. Most NDP and Liberal MPPs supported the bill, but without some progressive Conservative legislators backing, a divisive split could rack the province. 4 PCs decided to break party ranks to vote with their conscience and support Bill 7. Cabinet Minister and MPP Dennis Timbrell did it to show solidarity for his beloved brother, the well-known drag queen Rusty Ryan. And for me, a gay politician who was not yet out, I had to take a stand. We were known as the Gang of Four. I'm former Cabinet Minister and MPP Phil Gillies. The date, December 2nd, 1986, when LGBT rights came to Ontario.
Hi, my name is Joanne Vanicola, and I'm an actor and a writer, and I was first on Rainbow Country with Mark Tara on discussing the massacre at Pulse Club in Orlando. I realized how important it was for our community to have a radio station, specifically for our issues, to talk about people in the LGBTQ community and to provide an outlet for our stories, to discuss our politics, culture, and give voice to the issues that matter to us. And of course our artists and the things that we do globally and talk about culture. And without people like Mark Tara providing a space for this with a radio show like this, then we wouldn't have that voice. So support, tune in. Thank you.
And just like that, this little gay journey through Rainbow Country has come to an end. For the full 2-hour episode, just head over to marktara.com, where everything is connected, and hit the archives banner. Don't forget to keep up to date with the show. Follow me on socials at Mark Tara. The podcast is available on all major platforms, including audible.com and iHeartRadio. And finally, I want to take this time to thank you for taking your time to be with me. Remember, we live in days of making dreams come true. So believe in yourself, and the world will believe in you.
Hi, this is Police Constable Danielle Botno, also known as LGBT Cop, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.